Z attack proxy tool, Wookie tool, Nmap tool, Sneak tool, and so forth. And a couple of other tools on the DevOps such as Git, GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, Bitbucket, GitHub Desktop, GitHub Actions. These are a couple of other tools that I also train on the DevOps side. So that's my overall skill set on which I do consulting engagements for most of the corporates in India and abroad. And I do trainings, like I said, for corporates directly and also for public batches, the way I'm currently dealing with you. So that's a very high level introduction about my profile so that you guys know to whom you are speaking to. And obviously, if you're enrolling in this training, you'll also have an understanding like, okay, I'm getting trained on from a person like this. Now, we'll quickly move to the topic of training. I understand that all of you have enrolled for API automation testing using an automation tool called Postman. And on the screen, I'm presenting my curriculum, which is table of contents. And this is the standard content I train even the corporates and even the public batches. I hope my screen share is visible for all the new participants who are just joining in for the demonstration class. If you are having any issue understanding my language, or if there is a disturbance in my audio or video screen share, please stop me immediately. I can probably cross check if the problem is my side or there is a glitch on the GoToMeeting, and we'll solve it before we move it forward. So in this quick demonstration on the day one class, the intention of this class is to help you understand what I teach, what is the course curriculum, what kind of material you will get from me after you enroll in this program. Okay, so these are the learning outcomes that I assure every participant, irrespective of their experience, knowledge, and from the backgrounds they come with. All the participants will have minimum 5 learning objectives, meaning key takeaways. By the end of this course, you will understand what are REST APIs, what are SOAP APIs, and what kind of testing techniques you have to apply for REST APIs and SOAP APIs from an API testing perspective, and start writing multiple test cases. And these test cases are not same as your manual test cases. It is backend API automation, so your testing techniques are different. We'll also be able to write a test plan specifically for APIs and test cases document for APIs. We'll do automation testing of APIs using Postman tool. When I say automation, we will write the JavaScripts. We'll schedule the automation to execute on a particular date and time. We'll also do data-driven automation framework. And we'll also do performance testing or load testing of APIs using Postman tool. We'll integrate this with another tool called as Newman, which is a CLI tool. And later we can integrate with tools in the market like Jenkins, Bamboo, etc. And another final learning objective is once we integrate Postman with another tool called Newman, you will be able to generate fantastic test reports in the form of a JSON report or a HTML test report or an XML test report. These are the 5 key takeaways or learning objectives of this program. Coming to the course material, I will be obviously responsible for handing over the test material to you guys. So what kind of material you will get from me? That could be a common question. So I have written here highlights. You will get the rough notes, whatever I'm preparing from me on a daily basis. You will get some streamlined notes from me, which I have prepared myself. You'll also get a reusable test cases document and a test plan document. And whatever common JavaScripts that we need to crack the interviews or to work in projects, those JavaScripts document also will be given to you. When I say JavaScripts, please don't think that it will be like 100 lines of code. Each JavaScript is used to validate one particular business requirement. And each JavaScript in Postman will be like maximum 3 lines, 4 lines, or 5 lines. And very easy to understand, very easy to memorize in the future. And you don't even have to memorize. Once you start using Postman, the tool only will suggest you what command you should use for JavaScripts. So even if you are coming from a non-programming background, saying that I don't know programming or I hate programming, do not worry when I say JavaScripts, because Postman tool provides you solutions how to write the code. And we don't need to be a programmer to write the code. I mean, at least in Postman tool. That is one of the major reasons why most of the organizations are using Postman as the automation, and they're encouraging freshers also to get into this automation because it is easy for freshers and non-programmers to do this automation. Okay, that's the courseware material. To quickly show you what kind of material I have prepared already, I have my Google Drive here, which you'll be able to see once I share it. So you will get common interview questions and answers, multiple choice questionnaire. This document contains the common test cases that we generally use in the projects. I mean, general test cases. These are the test engineer responsibilities that you can write in your resume if you want to. And this is for your API automation. Here you see test plan document and what testing techniques we apply. That document is here. And then some PPTs which I have prepared. And you can see here all the notes is here as I scroll down. And these notes, they contain a lot of screenshots as well. Like if I just open any one, so how to conduct some testing technique in Postman. You see some sequential steps I have written along with screenshots. And if you want more information, I have given one article also. You can see that. And screenshots are nicely there along with the steps. So this is the kind of documentation I have prepared, which I share with all my students. So that after the class, they can go through this step by step, including the screenshots, and they'll be able to clearly reciprocate the same thing or duplicate the same steps when they're practicing. So these are the notes that you're going to get from me. Okay. And let's dive into the different chapters that we have in this course. So I have classified this entire curriculum into multiple chapters. So if you see, I think I have close to 13 chapters. And this course usually takes nearly 24 hours to somewhere between 24 hours to 28 hours, I can say. But I do not go by the number of hours. I go only by the course coverage only. But if you want a ballpark number, how many days it will take, think of it as 1 month, Monday to Friday on the classes, no classes on Saturdays and Sundays. And the timings will be night 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., 1 hour, Indian Standard Time, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Let's look at the chapters. So chapter 1 will introduce you guys to the API introduction. What are the basics of an API and how does a client and server communicate with each other? What is a client? What is a server? What are the different things that client sends to server when it is communicating while an API request is sent? And what are the different parameters server is going to send back to client when it is giving an API response? That's what you're going to discuss in chapter 1, along with the popular n-tier architecture model or 3-tier architecture model. This chapter 1 will be basis or the foundation pillar for understanding how APIs actually look like, how APIs will work. And even for manual testers, chapter 1 will be a very good foundation. Okay. I'm not getting into the details by reading each and of all these things. I'm giving a high level gist of it. In this chapter 1, you will also understand what are the different HTTP methods, what are the different protocols APIs uses, what are request headers and response headers, what is the cryptographic protocol such as SSL and TLS, what is this something called as front end system, back end system, server side system, and if APIs are getting developed, which developers develop it, and in which architecture it lies. All those questions will have answers by the end of chapter 1. Okay. And may I request all of you guys to go on mute? I see some noise. Yeah, thank you. Then we have chapter 2. So chapter 2 will make you come little closer towards APIs. Here we will see what kind of APIs we have in the industry. What are the different types of APIs that have got evolved over a period of time. So we have something called as remote procedure calls. So what are they? Then we have SOAP APIs. What do they do? Then we have REST APIs. Then we have GraphQL APIs. What do they do? And what is the difference between these different types of APIs in the market? And what is the industry currently using? Which one are we learning in this course? How to handle the interview questions from those types of APIs? All those things will be discussed, not purely from an interview perspective only, but even from a project perspective. Then we'll also look at different types of APIs such as consumer APIs, enterprise APIs, authorized APIs or unauthorized APIs, because that's what most of the corporate employees work on these type of APIs when they work in a project. We'll also look at the differences between different types of APIs such as SOAP APIs versus REST APIs. What are the advantages and disadvantages? What are the differences between these two? Why the industry has moved from SOAP APIs into REST APIs. Then we will get into the understanding the syntax of an API. So when you get an API from a developer, what does that API contain? What are the different parts of an API and how do you define them? What is the understanding of it? Which are the mandatory parameters of an API? Which are the optional parameters of an API? That you also will understand in this. Then we'll look at some examples on the public internet where APIs are available, right? Then we'll move on to chapter 3. See, for by the end of each chapter, there is a deliverable from my side, meaning I will be giving you notes. Not only by the end of each chapter, by the end of each day, you will get notes from me so that you can read what is that I taught and you can read the document, practice it. You will also get the recordings of our videos. We'll post them on YouTube and you will be giving you access to your email address. Only if you log into YouTube, you will have access to those recorded videos and they are for lifetime. The notes I will give it on Google Drive, which you can download it. It's for lifetime. Videos also will record it and will share with you lifetime. Then we have chapter 3. After we complete chapter 2, we'll move on to this chapter 3 where we will talk about different testing techniques that APIs should be tested against. So when people ask, like, do you do API testing? And they say yes. And they say that we do regression testing for APIs, smoke testing for APIs. But those are not the answers the industry is expecting. Even in interviews, no one expects those kind of answers. There are different testing techniques that you will do for APIs, such as what I wrote here on the curriculum. You have something called response code testing, response headers testing, response time testing, response body testing, etc., etc., etc. All those things we will discuss in chapter 3, and I have classified them into two categories: positive testing and negative testing. Negative testing is to ensure that your APIs will fail and you will find a bug. Positive testing is to ensure that your APIs will pass and you will prove to the development team that these APIs are working. We'll also prepare an API test plan in the chapter 3 and we will write some reusable test cases in chapter 3. That will help you show confidence in your projects and show confidence in the interviews if you are giving out interviews. That's the crux of chapter 3. So until chapter 3, it is the foundation block for us, meaning you are going to make your foundations very strong in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. All these three chapters are theoretical sessions, which means I'm not going to show you any PowerPoint presentations. I'm going to write it on a document. I'm going to write it on a MS Paint, show you different diagrams, explain them, write the notes before you. Chapter 1, 2, 3 will be your foundation before you actually do API testing. Okay. So 3 chapters will take nearly 5 days of our classes, like 5 hours, I would say. From chapter 4 onwards until the last chapter, it will be practical training. Wherever you see the red color hands-on exercise, it is going to be practical explanations with evidences and proofs. So chapter 4 is where you are getting introduced to the automation tool Postman. So in chapter 4, we'll download the tool, we'll install it, we will do sign up, we will sign in, we'll do have a quick walkthrough of the different features that Postman tool is giving to us and how we can log into Postman on a browser or also by installing it on your Windows operating system or Linux operating system or Mac operating system. That's the agenda for chapter 4. And in chapter 5, we will talk about the hierarchy of Postman. Like in this tool, what is the methodology you have to follow? What is the hierarchy step by step that you have to follow? Like first you have to create a workspace, then you have to create a collection, then you have to create a folder, then you have to create a subfolder, then you have to create an API, then you have to write variables, then you have to write JavaScripts. So like this, there is a hierarchy that we follow in Postman to make our life easier in automation. That's the hierarchy I'm going to discuss in chapter 5, along with how to create all those hierarchy elements in Postman tool. And then we'll talk about Postman workspaces, which is the first element in the hierarchy. So we'll spend one class entirely on workspaces, like how to create it, how to delete it. If I create a workspace, how can I invite you? How can I remove you if you are a member? How can I convert my workspace from one category to another category? Like I can make my workspace private so no one can see it. I can make it public so you can see it, or I will make it a team so that only few of you can see it. So those discussions we will do in chapter 5, which is hierarchy about Postman. Let me take a pause here. Do you guys have any questions until chapter 1 to chapter 5 or anything that you wanted to ask before I continue? Anyone has a question, you can unmute and speak up. If you don't have a question, it's okay. Okay. No questions is what I
Kiran,
understand. Yeah.
hi Kiran. With this course, we can learn any JavaScript. That's what I want to know.
Postman, see, JavaScript comes in multiple flavors. Like
Okay.
human beings have multiple languages, right? Like Telugu, Hindi, English. Within JavaScript also we have a lot of flavors. So let me tell you a few of those flavors. Let's say flavor one, flavor two, etc. But the flavor that Postman uses is this one, Chai JavaScript. And the advantage of Chai JavaScript is the code looks like English language. So to answer your question, you will be learning this one only, Chai JavaScript, not the other JavaScript that developers use. Developers use a different JavaScript in the backend. Our JavaScript is Chai flavor, which Postman uses. This you will learn for sure in the course.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we have chapter 6 where we are going to talk about how to start testing APIs, whether it is a SOAP API or a REST API. And when it comes to REST APIs, I'm going to take minimum 3 to 4 projects or 4 to 5 projects because each project follows a different documentation format. Right now, you may not understand in case if you are coming from a different background, but documentation format means the way the developer writes the requirements. In APIs, in backend, the requirements will be written in a Swagger document. Example, let me show it to you here. So this is one API documentation format in which developers can write it. So this is one example how APIs will be represented. So this is one project we are going to take and see how you can test it. And then there is one more format called, so this is another format where developers will write the code directly. So this format also we are going to see. And sometimes developers will write in some other format like curl format. So that's another project which I'm going to take. I'm just going to show you high level. Let's say these are the APIs that the developers will give. How do you test these kind of flavors of APIs which are coming in different curl programming language format? So this is another format that we are going to learn. So here I have mentioned a few formats that we are going to learn for each project. And another format that I can give you is this one. So this is one format. So this is another XML format in which APIs are written. So how do you test this kind of APIs? That's one format. And then some other format like this, where the code is given directly like this, saying, this is the request and this is the response you are going to get it. Just go ahead and validate it. Like this, the developers will be sharing with us. So to answer those interview questions and real-time challenges, I have this first point here. If you see, we'll understand the different API documentation formats the developers will give. Okay, and we will look at practicals also, and then we will follow the Postman hierarchy in doing all these projects. That's what I have written here in clear, saying, how do you do API testing for the Postmans, which are given in different formats. So we'll be creating a framework for smoke test cases and for regression test cases. We'll take APIs that uses all kind of methods like get method, post method, put, patch, delete. And these APIs, either they use authorization or they don't use authorization. Authorization is nothing but credentials like your username, password, or an API token or an API access key. And those things are also going to be explained in this particular chapter. And we are going to validate different parameters that the server is going to return, like response code, response message, response body, response headers, response cookies, response time, etc. etc. We're going to validate all these things. After we validate it by writing some automation scripts, we are going to generate a test report by running the entire collection or set of APIs, and then we'll generate a test report in JSON format. And we'll see how to understand the report and how to explain this report to developers. Then you can generate an API documentation for your automation framework. Usually in most of the corporates, what they say is once you write an automation code, they say, can you prepare a documentation around what is that you have done? And writing a documentation is a manual process, but in Postman you can automate it. You can tell Postman to generate a nice HTML documentation. Okay, so you have to follow this chapter to get it done. Then after this, we'll move on to chapter 7, where the focus will be more on automation aspects of APIs. So in this, I'm going to talk about a data-driven automation testing using two frameworks. By supplying the values from a CSV file, such as comma separated values file, or we use Postman built-in functions to generate a dynamic data or random data. Like if I say dollar random city, a random city name will be generated. Or if I say dollar random latitude, a random latitude number will be generated. Or dollar random bank number, a bank number will be generated. So random data can be generated or dynamic data can be generated, which we need it for automation testing. And we call that framework as data-driven automation testing, where you will test each API by testing it with multiple values of test data. A very interesting aspect and very common thing that most of the automation testers do in the world. We'll also do interoperability testing, which is a kind of compatibility test, whether your APIs will work on different browsers, different operating systems. Right now, if you see, I'm on a Windows machine, but I can test the API from this machine, whether it works on a Mac, whether it works on a Linux, whether it works on Safari browser, though I don't have the browser on the computer. So whether you have other operating systems or browsers or not, we can still test the compatibility of your APIs on other computers and other systems using this automation testing, which I'll teach in the chapter 7. And with the Postman, the advantage is you can also conduct basic performance testing and basic load testing with fantastic HTML test reports and PDF reports that you can generate. I can just show you quick reports that I have generated for one of the batches that we are currently doing. So this is a quick performance test report that we can generate in Postman. Okay, I'm not going to explain this report now, but you see how the report looks like. It's a nice report with a lot of meaning and nice graphs also we have. A lot of metrics are also there here. And you can also generate a PDF report. So I'll show you a sample PDF report, which you can share it with your developers. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show in our chapter 7 for performance testing. Then in this chapter, a couple of other things that we are going to learn is how do you schedule your APIs to run at a particular time. Let's say tomorrow I'm on vacation or I'm on leave, but my developer expects me to send a report tomorrow after execution. I cannot, avoid my leave, and neither I can stay back and do this testing. But I can tell Postman that tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, let the Postman tool automatically execute my scripts and send a report to my developer and copy me in the email. So Postman can do that for us, meaning you can schedule your automation test in advance and Postman will execute it, which is a very nice feature. I love it. Then we are going to write a lot of JavaScripts for automation or for validations, which we call it as assertions. And these are few of the assertions that I have written here just to help you guys, but we are going to learn beyond this. We are going to validate the response code, response body, response time, response headers, the JSON structure we are going to validate. We are going to check the enum values. We are going to convert XML to JSON, JSON to XML. We are going to write a lot of conditional statements such as if conditions, else conditions. We'll write scripts and we can skip them also. We can introduce a delay in the scripts. We'll do data type checks. We'll start printing the response on the console, the request attributes on the console. We'll start testing the arrays in JSON. We'll also validate the CSV data which is coming from the local computer. We'll validate whether we're getting a success or a failure. If it is a failure, is it because of client or because of server? We'll do all kind of assertions right from day 5 onwards until the last class. And we'll also do very important thing called as API chaining. API chaining is a process where you send the response of one API as a request to another API. Like I can do marriage between multiple APIs if they are dependent on each other. So that's something which is basic expectation of any API automation tester. So we're going to write all those things. And Then we have chapter 8, where the API documentation that I have mentioned here, right? If you see in first point, understanding the different API documentations. So to do it practically, we will leverage this chapter 8 also, where uh, Postman will use import facility to bring the documentation from a browser or from a local computer or from a GitHub repository into the Postman tool. Like your developer says, I have the API documentation in GitHub. So we'll tell Postman, go and talk to GitHub and bring it. Postman will do it. Or I'll tell the Postman that I have the API documentation somewhere on the internet. Go and bring it. Postman will do it. Or I'll tell the Postman that the documentation of APIs is there on my local computer. So Postman will talk to it and get it. So how that communication happens and how you can import your API projects into Postman, that is the output of chapter 8 and chapter 9. Both chapter 8 and 9 are similar ones. Chapter 10 introduces to the concept of Postman variables. So in any automation, we do variables, right? And Postman also is no exception. So we'll create variables such as global variables, local variables, environment variables, etc. And we will understand the reason why we should have a variable, what is the syntax of it, what is the advantage if you use it, or what is the disadvantage if you don't use it. All those things will be part of chapter 10. Then chapter 11, very important, we are going to get into command prompt execution, meaning non-GUI mode, meaning we'll go to the command prompt and we'll start writing commands here to generate HTML test reports, XML test reports, or a JSON test reports, or a CLA test reports, or a CSV test reports. So we need some commands to generate these kind of reports. To generate all these reports, we are going to learn another tool in Postman called as Newman. Now this is a tool from Postman only, but it's a separate tool. So that's what I'm going to discuss in chapter 11. And what is the prerequisites to install that Newman tool? Like we have to install Node.js, then we have to install Node Package Manager, we have to install a reporter called HTML Extra, and then we'll start doing all those automation testings from the command prompt and generate fantastic reports which we can share with our developers. I don't know if I have a report that I can show you, but let me see here. So this is a kind of JSON report that you can generate in automation. And if you want, you can also generate an XML report. So this is your XML test report, which talks about the passes and failures. And we can also generate a nice HTML test report. It looks very colorful. You can toggle it to light theme and dark theme. You are going to see the details here about your execution, what has written, what is passed, and you see a tabular report here. And you can see here what are the requests that the tester has executed and what has passed and what has failed. You get a lot of details in the report. This report also we are going to generate. And if you come to failed test, you will see only the reasons and the APIs that failed and the reasons why it failed. And you will see a tab for skipped test. So this kind of reports is what we are going to generate in chapter 11. Then in chapter 12, basics of troubleshooting. How do you troubleshoot your APIs when they fail? How do you debug your APIs when they fail? How do you print messages on the console for troubleshooting and debugging? You'll also understand the different settings globally available in Postman. And how do you check the status of Postman? Sometimes we say, hey, I'm using Postman, but it's not working. Then you can go to this page, status.postman.com. And once you go there, you will be able to see if there is a problem with the Postman server itself. But now it says all the systems are operational. So here you see that all the servers are currently working on Postman. So there is a problem from your side only. So this understanding, I will give it to you when we are in this chapter 12. Finally, the last chapter, this is where we are going to take a backup of all the automation work that we did in a GitHub repository. And we'll also bring that GitHub repository back into Postman. That's one integration I'm going to show you. And of course, by the end of chapter 13, we will be closing our training program. That's what I have in the curriculum. And you will also get assignments if you are interested on a weekly basis or on a daily basis for REST APIs and SOAP APIs. I'll also give you some pre-assessment and post-assessments. I mean, something like an object assessment if you are interested. I usually do with all the batches. And prerequisites of this course is anyone who comes from manual testing background should be a good fit for this training. And anyone who wants to shift their career from manual to automation or UI automation to backend APIs automation, you can do that. And this is a kind of lab setup that we are going to do in our course. I will help you with this detailed lab setup, so that should not be a problem. So overall, we have 13 chapters, team, and this is what I have in store for all you guys. And if you have any questions with related to anything, you can ask me now. That's the idea of my demonstration class today. I don't want to take an API and show you this is how I test it. That will start doing it slowly. But today, my intention is if you are planning to enroll in this course, you have all the rights to know what I teach, and hence this demonstration class. Over to you guys if you have any questions. I'm done from my side.
Hey, hi Kiran.
Yeah, hi Kumar.
Uh, Thank you for your time and patience, mainly the way you walked through all the points step by step. So it's with a lot of patience you try to do that. Usually people don't do it. So,
Okay,
so
thank
thanks
you.
for that. And second, the main question what I have is I happen to raise my hand a couple of times to at this certain point itself because
Oh,
you showed some some kind of a report in HTML format or view, wherein
okay.
you were saying like this is the test report somewhere from
Uh-huh.
something like that you were trying
Yeah,
to show before. So
this
this
one,
is
right?
something right. Is this something kind of a live database through which you data that you pulled a report for one server or some kind of how this is
Okay, I get your
when
question. Let me answer it. So we will be generating this report by pointing to the automation framework that we have created. And our automation framework will be pointing to the APIs which our developer has given. And these APIs will be indirectly talking to the database. So
okay.
the reverse engineering, if I have to do, this HTML report is actually coming from Newman tool. Newman tool
Hmm.
is talking to Postman tool. Postman tool is talking to the API request, which is nothing but
Okay.
your automation framework. Your automation framework is talking to the API client to request, or I can simply say your API code written by developer, and this code will be softly talking to your database also. So this is the reverse engineering I'm doing. This is the
Okay.
answer to your question.
And the see usually what happens or what I've seen is like we open Postman, we try to whatever the we get an API to call out, right? We try to
Mhm.
enter those API details and try to get or post something so that it gets posted into that destined location, right?
Uh-huh.
So how will we see it here? Let's here in I mean in our course or in our training session, how that will happen? Because you showed like uh, I mean basic. There are various kinds of um, what do you call like get put response or we try to post or pull some information right from various other databases sources, right? We
Yeah.
there are
Mhm.
maybe I'm trying to talk multiple things, but let's say there is some API that is given where you it seems on the go on the internet they provide an API link saying that from here you can pull the data that you fetch the data, right? And then you put it in the Postman and try to pull the data for us for reference,
Correct.
and then the data is pulled and downloaded into CSV or maybe Excel format, correct?
Mhm.
Now, in our session, in our training, how will that happen? Because we don't know, we are only looking at Postman, right? We cannot create an API by ourselves. I mean, that is a completely different
Got
uh,
it.
coding
Mhm.
experience person would be doing it, building it
Okay. Okay. So,
based on some
uh,
requirement.
yeah, let me see if I can answer it, and you can correct me if that's the answer you're expecting, or if I'm little deviating there. So what I'm going to do is in all the trainings I do, I take public APIs which are available for users to practice.
Hmm.
And in this public APIs, you have real-time APIs, meaning that where the data is really getting updated in the database, and you also have
Hmm.
dummy APIs. So
Okay.
mostly this is what I select for training programs. For your
Hmm.
practice, if you want more examples, I can also give you this, meaning I'll assign these things to you.
Hmm.
See,
Okay.
anyways, dummy APIs, I mean, real-time APIs, I'm going to give you access, and you will also access from your laptops without any issues. If you want more examples saying, I need a different project, I want to practice, I will also give you access to these dummy APIs. When I say dummy, their data won't really go to their databases. They just simulate that, okay, you told me to do this, I did this. It's just a simulation.
Hmm. Okay.
Whereas in real-time database, the API is really talking to the database.
Hmm. Okay.
But in the dummy APIs, it won't happen. So
Okay.
for
Okay.
real-time APIs, I'm going to take a Swagger documentation. I'm going to take a JSON documentation, a YAML documentation, a HR documentation, or a .html documentation, or a curl documentation. So these are the real-time examples in different formats I'm going to take. And you will probably understand it more when you see it practically. But yeah, there's a kind of answer I can give it.
Okay. Okay. Now I get that because it's dummy data, so you may not have the actual database to get the real time info. Okay. And you also showed in some of the point, like I think session 5 or 4, you said like we will use Swagger, JSON, YAML, HTML, curl,
Uh-huh.
and in your
Correct.
document, the first line
Yes.
somewhere it was there,
Here it is.
chapter 6, I think. So each one will be one set of example you will try to do, or will mix up with all of. I really don't know how it works, so I'm asking.
Each one will be a separate one. Like I'm not going to mix it. This we will spend one class, JSON
Uh-huh.
one class, YAML one class, HAR one class, HTML one class, curl one class. So think of them as separate projects. Each
Mm-hmm.
project will be like one class to two classes or sometimes three classes. Like if I take a curl, this itself will be minimum 4 to 5 classes, meaning that's the
Oh.
amount of energy we are investing. HTML,
Mm-hmm.
I will not spend 4 to 5. The reason is by the end of curl class, you will become so solid in terms of understanding that even if I cover it in two classes or one class, you will be like, that's okay because you
Okay.
understand it. HAR will do it in one class because first I'll take a curl actually. I mean, though I wrote it at the bottom, this is my first project which I usually take because that's the common thing in the industry. So the first
Right.
project only we will spend lot of energy and time, sometimes even beyond 5 classes, but just for number sake I'm writing. The remaining projects we will separately do in a separate class, but we don't spend the similar energies and time because when I start teaching you are like, ah, Kiran, we know that, move on, because it's kind of
Okay.
a repetition. Just that
Hmm.
how to understand this, how to
Okay.
bring
Got
that
you.
document into Postman, those things, and we will quickly do things. So after the end of chapter curl, when I'm doing Swagger, it's a recap for you guys on the automation. JSON,
Okay.
YAML, HAR, HTML, everything will be a recap. So which means nearly 10 to 12 classes will be like, okay, this guy is explaining the same thing in a different way. So that even if
Okay.
you don't
Hmm.
practice, things will be in your mind. So that's how the program
Okay.
has been designed.
You also mentioned about some integration, right? Something where we will also be doing it. Let's say,
With the GitHub
okay, with
here,
GitHub.
I
Let's
think
say
this
we
is
have,
what you.
okay. Let's assume that we, let's say, or take an example, like usually there's a tool, monitoring tool, or some ITSM tool, right? Like ServiceNow. They try to integrate various tools with each other, right? So they obviously use these APIs to call out and post it. How much of
Hmm.
that can be covered in this or something, anything on those lines?
Okay, so two answers to this question. That's something that's really happening in the industry. So when you want to monitor the APIs, so the simple question is you wanted to monitor the APIs.
Right.
Now
Yeah, that not that.
without
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
without yeah, without using service now, we are going to monitor using a feature in Postman called Postman monitors, where You as a test engineer will be monitoring whether these APIs are healthy or unhealthy based on the schedule you are running. Let's say you wanted to integrate with a third party tool, and let's take ServiceNow as an example. I'm really unsure how to integrate with ServiceNow, but I can take a blind guess. If you have a CLI command, you can mostly integrate any automation with any other third party tool. And to generate a CLI command, we are learning this Newman tool. Meaning Newman tool will give you some commands. Maybe if you use these commands inside a ServiceNow tool, you will be able to integrate it.
Okay.
So Newman tool will help you with any other third-party tool integration, because that is the reason why Postman developed a Newman. But whether it can integrate with ServiceNow or not is a debatable topic, because I never worked with ServiceNow. And another
Okay.
question is, usually your automation scripts need not be integrated with ServiceNow, because developers, when they developed the APIs, they have already integrated with monitoring tools like Grafana or ServiceNow or New Relic or any other tools. So DevOps engineers, so you have DevOps engineers in most of the companies. What they do is they will monitor it continuously by integrating it with these tools, such as ServiceNow or Grafana, New Relic, AppDynamics, or Dynatrace.
Okay.
As a tester, we are doing it with this feature called Postman monitors, which is there in my curriculum somewhere here. I think in one of the automation chapters, you will see it. This one. If you see the yellow line, this one.
Okay. Conducting continuous scheduling. Okay. I'll check. Okay. Yeah. That is more of the status dot API. Sorry, that Postman, that one, right? API health check.
No, no, that's
Oh, that
different.
was for
And this is,
Postman. Okay, that is different. Okay, got it. Yeah. Nowadays we have some independent tools that monitor those APIs directly. Yeah, but
oh,
as a company employee, you'll have to when someone builds those API, they'll have to monitor them to make sure they're
correct.
healthy and active. Okay.
Yes.
Kiran, is there any other way I can talk to you later? I don't want to spoil the entire time here.
Yeah, sure.
Your
You can get in touch with Isha team. They
okay,
will help you, or you can put a message on
okay,
the group chat also. If you are on the group chat, you
okay,
can
sure.
message.
All right. Thank you, Kiran. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking those questions. So, okay, the room is open for other participants in case if you have any question to ask me
Yes,
related to the course or
yes,
in general. Go ahead. Yeah, Ashish.
yeah, yeah. Actually, hi, Kiran. Actually, my actually question is that you are not going to cover REST assured APIs in that.
Okay, rest assured is another automation tool, Ashish, that we are
Okay,
not
okay,
covering because this is
okay,
only for Postman. But in Postman, we are learning REST APIs. REST APIs are different. REST assured are different. REST assured is an automation tool. That's a different tool.
okay,
So we
okay,
are covering REST APIs, comma, SOAP APIs in this course
okay,
using Postman as the tool.
okay.
Something other question I have, Kiran, like we have
Uh-huh.
Anaconda. I remember using it back from 2015. Even they do the same thing like the Postman, or is it different completely?
Who? Sorry, who will do that? I didn't get it.
It was the tool, something like a UI interface only, like Anaconda was there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It was long back. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
that tool does the same, or that is different from this.
I'm
Postman.
unsure of that. Postman is obviously different
Yeah, yeah. Earlier it was
from
only
the tool.
uh, this small client base. It was there earlier. Now they have come with various versions in Postman, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of things have changed in Postman in the last, I would say, 6 years to 7 years.
Right. Okay.
Tool has changed a lot.
Kiran, is it a licensed version tool or is it an open version tool? This Postman is all about.
It's an open source.
It's an open source. Okay, it's not going to cost anything, right? It's free of charge.
Yes, yes, absolutely no.
Okay. And coming to the automation framework, you said, right? Like apart from the data-driven framework, right? Anything else like we leverage here? Any other frameworks?
In Postman, we'll have only two frameworks. One is data-driven automation framework, and the other thing is Newman framework.
Okay, only two
These are the two.
frameworks. Okay.
Yeah,
We are covering both or else only one, Kiran?
both, both. We'll cover both.
Okay.
So in the current market, Kiran, like what it is trending right now, it's only data-driven or like the second one you are telling, right? The Newman framework, right?
Uh, from Postman perspective, both the frameworks are important because they are hand in hand. Uh, without data-driven, Newman becomes handicapped,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
without Newman, data-driven becomes handicapped. So they are
Okay. So
like
the base thing is the data-driven then in that case, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
From
Base
I mean,
foundation.
if you're this is from Postman perspective, but let's say we are talking about Selenium. Then in
Mhm.
Selenium, you have different frameworks. You have keyword-driven framework,
Correct.
hybrid
Correct. Yeah.
framework, data-driven framework, POM framework, Cucumber framework. There you have like 10 different frameworks. But in
Correct, correct.
Postman,
That's
you
that's
don't
the,
have
that's what
so
my
many of
question
them.
is about. Like the other automation tool, they have multiple frameworks. Here, how many frameworks will we have? Yeah, I got the
I'll
point.
tell the reason why. Yeah.
Yeah,
See, in
good.
Postman, the advantage is you don't have so many frameworks available. It's not that I'm not teaching or we don't have it. It's that Postman itself says that we have only these simple frameworks. We don't want to complicate things unnecessarily. That's the advantage we have here.
Sure, sure. Okay. Thanks.
What about this graph SQL, Kiran? I mean, just I saw something in that early, the first page of the document. What was that? I mean, something like graph SQL. What was that?
GraphQL is another type of APIs which is recently introduced by Facebook.
That also we are covering?
If you're interested, yes, will. I mean, not very low level explanation, no, not very low level execution can happen in GraphQL because publicly we don't have so many APIs available, but you will get a fair understanding of how to test GraphQL APIs using Postman tool. That I generally cover.
Okay.
Hi Kiran, what is the complete duration of the course and what days the class would be? Is it every Monday at the same time?
See, Monday to Friday are the class timings, and
Hmm.
9 p.m. same time. The way we had
Hmm.
demo, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. every day, 1 hour. And I say that this is the starting date of my classes, but today and first few 3 days will be just normal casual classes, and the end date would be probably 26 hours starting from now. You can say 26, 27, 28, some number here and there.
Okay,
So you
thank you.
can say minimum 5 weeks will be there for sure. Blind number will be 5 weeks to 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I have, Kiran.
Yeah.
See, how many users we can do the load testing? As see, we can put more number of load on the Jmeter, right? So when it comes to Postman, how many users? I mean, can we do the same like we are having CSV's data set, right? We are having more number of elements for
Hmm.
like to get the CSV file, like user defined variable is there, CSV dataset config is there. So we can do same way which we do in Jmeter here also in Postman.
We can do the similar way here, but Postman is not a replacement for Jmeter. Jmeter is obviously a fantastic tool for performance testing. Postman
Yes,
is
yes.
giving that facility for API testers to do basic load test, so that you don't have to really take up a course on Jmeter and then become an expert and come here. If you understand the tool itself, you can do load testing of your APIs. Uh, and you said for how many users? Well, the answer depends on the CPU and the RAM that you have on the computer. Meaning the infrastructure of your computer becomes the deciding factor. If I look at my computer,
Okay.
I have like 16 GB RAM. So 16 GB RAM and it's a single core processor. I can say that I can do load testing for 2000 users using Postman on my computer. And if you
Okay.
say no, I'm interested in doing 5000 users, then my computer becomes not eligible. So for that, there are certain hacks. I mean, some tricks that you can play around to still do load testing for 5000 users from Postman tool. So simple answer is your infrastructure of the computer will be a deciding factor for how many users load you can generate. So first thing is your computer should generate 2000 users load. Then the second question is can
Yes.
server handle it?
Yes.
Right? So that's the one.
Okay.
Okay, looks like no more questions from the participants. Uh, Again, thank you very much. This was really an interactive session. Most of you have asked questions, and a few of them are messaging me on the chats also. I'll answer them to you also. I mean, I'll answer those questions on the chat as well. Thank you for your time, guys. Tomorrow we'll have the continuation of this class, same time 9 p.m. And since we are kind of doing this demos and trying to get the questions and trying to give them justified answers, the first few classes will not be focusing very much on the actual automation of APIs. But nevertheless, tomorrow I'm starting off my chapter 1, which is introduction to APIs. And if you are looking forward to, please join the call tomorrow same time. Get in touch with Isha team if you have any questions related to anything else, or post a message on the chat either from Isha team, or I will be glad enough to answer your queries. Thank you very much for your time, and take care. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kiran.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you.